Cancel culture is out of control is a thing I'm hearing a lot more nowadays, and I'm willing to admit there is some truth in that statement, but there's also some overblown nonsense. Yes, I can confidently say there are some people that are overreacting to some things, but just who exactly and over what? Well, that is what we're going to sift through today. This is 10 Talks. Cancel culture should be canceled. If you were to ask 100 people if they knew what cancel culture was, you're probably going to hear an overwhelming, yeah, I sure do. But as soon as you bring some follow-up questions to the table and ask them to explain what it actually is, that's when you get an assortment of different answers. So if we're going to make any sense of this vast and very divisive topic, we're going to have to create some categories. So let's start with the two biggest and most obvious examples of cancel culture. Cosby and Weinstein, a.k.a. the world's most unwelcome comedy duo. Now, Cosby, fittingly at first, was kind of like Jell-O, sweet and fun and silly, kind of jiggly. And then we realized, thanks to Hannibal Buress, that, oh, dear God, he's just been fermented cowhides the entire time. Ugh. Weinstein, same story. Toast of Hollywood to just toast. Now, these guys are dangerous repeat sex offenders with decades of ruined lives and careers in their abhorrent wake. Now they're in prison. That's not cancel culture. That's sweet overdue justice. And rounding out the Humpty Dumpty creep list are your Matt Lauers, your Bill O'Reillys, your R. Kellys, Charlie Roses, and Kevin Spaceys. These guys had a great fall once we learned what kind of men they were. And that's not cancel culture either. So just to be clear, this is not the group of people we're defending, right? We're all on the same page with this one, yes? Good. Next. So from the burn in hell list, let's make our way to the what the hell list. And there we find Louis C.K., Roseanne, and Al Franken. Now, all three of them were enjoying successful careers, and now they are not. The three of them made varying degrees of bonehead moves, and their fame and money and influence couldn't just make that go away. Now, I don't find that to be cancel culture either. I actually find that kind of refreshing. So let me ask you, how many times could you pleasure yourself in front of your coworkers before your career took a hit? That's not a challenge, by the way. Please keep the number at 0. Next. Let's go to the list of people that aren't actually people, starting with the Muppets. Okay, what happened with the Muppets? I will tell you. It started with one disclaimer at the beginning of one episode of The Muppet Show. And that's it. Okay, now that can't be all. No, it really is. That's it. There's more. Check this out. See this? This is seasons 1 through 3 of The Muppet Show. Until recently, this was the only place I could watch this show, but now they're all online. I can watch the whole damn show online now. I'm not sure what the opposite of a Muppet cancellation is. Is it a Muppeteria, a Muppetopia, a Muppapalooza, a Muppathon? I don't know, but we're in it, and I am into it. So no, the Muppets are not canceled either, unless, is it opposite day? I'm being told it's not opposite day. Next, let's talk potatoes, Mr. Potato Head. Hey, you know that thing that toy companies do where they add more accessories or more belts or more characters or just one little thing so you buy the whole thing? Barbie and G.I. Joe, they've all been doing it your entire life. Well, that's what this is. Mr. and Mrs. Potato Head aren't gone. They're not off shelves. There's just more of them, more options to choose from because it's a successful toy. This is not cancel culture either. This is marketing. Buy it or don't. Sidebar, if you're uncomfortable with the idea of a gender-neutral potato, then I just need you to know that your preoccupation with imaginary potato genitals on a child's toy makes me uncomfortable. It's important for me that you know that. Pepe Le Pew. Perhaps you're asking yourself, why are legions of people coming to defend an old skunk from the 1960s? Well, it seems he wasn't included in the script for the new Space Jam movie. My. Looks like the fuck your feelings crowd sure is worried about the bruised ego of a drawing. Is this really the mountain you want to die on? A rapey cartoon skunk from 50 years ago? And if it is, then I have to ask you this. Have you ever held down a coworker and kissed her on the face repeatedly while she tried desperately to scramble and kick herself away from you? And then when you got pulled into HR, you just explained, oh, no, you don't understand. It's from a hilarious cartoon from like 70 years ago. I'm sure everyone would find that totally funny. Pepe Le Pew isn't canceled either, but maybe he should be. Next, Dr. Seuss. Now this one stings a bit. All right, point me in the direction of the people that banned Dr. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm being told it was them. Yeah, that's right. It was the estate of Dr. Seuss that made this decision to halt printing of 6 of their lesser-known titles. This is their stuff. They're allowed to do that. And it's actually a very common practice in the world of publishing. Things go in and out of print all the time. Hand me the banned substance. You see this? This is my copy from my childhood of Mulberry Street. I've had this since I was a kid, have it committed to memory, and guess what? The Indigo Gestapo didn't come to my house and confiscate it from me and burn it in the village square in front of my family. I'm legally allowed to have that. Here are 2 headlines for you, okay? The Grinch who stole your childhood. Cancel culture finally gets its claws into beloved children's author. Publisher halts printing of 6 of its lesser-known titles. Now, one of those headlines is exciting, and the other one is accurate. The Washington Redskins. Okay, this is a pretty easy punt. I'm going to let Chris handle this one. Chris?
And now they have nothing, man. Everybody exploits the Indians, man. You got fucking Mazzola commercials and F-Troop and the Washington Redskins. Redskins, that's not nice. That ain't cool. That's a racial slur, man. That's kind of like having the New York niggers, okay?
When you take all this stuff and you put it into a big pile, the Muppets and the Looney Tunes and Aunt Jemima and the Uncle Ben and the Washington Redskins and sitcoms and comedians and yeah, it feels kind of scary. It does sort of feel like a big angry mob out to get you, out for blood, like the Men in Black, just waiting for you to mess up and use the wrong pronoun, and then bam, they flash you out of memory with their flashy silver dicks. But if you take a breath and zoom out a bit and do a C- level of research, you will see it's not an angry mob. All these stories have a logical, pragmatic explanation. It's just a software upgrade, folks. It's just a software upgrade. Dial it down. Okay. And I am not going to try and convince you that there aren't people out there that are a little quick to play the racism and sexism and homophobia card a little too frequently and a little too often. Yes, there are people out there that are going to try to make allies into enemies and enemies into allies. That does exist, but let's not pretend it's a scourge or a plague, and let's not convince ourselves that this is something that is new. This has been happening since the dawn of time, whether people thinking that if you're left-handed, you're an instrument of the devil, or people who thought that Sabrina the Teenage Witch was a recruiting tool for a satanic cult, or people out there who think that if you wear a leather jacket, you're a dangerous murderer that belongs in Cosby prison. Yes, there are always people out there that come in a little hot. I'll go even one step further and say there are people out there that need to ask themselves a question, seriously, is this person really my enemy? Or did they just say something dumb in a tweet 10 years ago? But if you're more upset about the loss of Aunt Jemima and Uncle Ben than you are over George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, you have your priorities out of whack. Time to pour yourself a bath and make yourself a hot tea and have a good drink and think. Okay, here's a little backstory on me, all right? As long as we're being real here. First album I ever had committed to memory was by Bill Cosby. First book I ever had memorized, Dr. Seuss. The earliest memory I have of ever thinking anything was funny was the Muppets. And some of my favorite all-time comedy routines are by Louis C.K. I am the perfect candidate for somebody who should be nervous about cancel culture. And I would be if that's what was happening. And the back-breaking irony of all of this is the people that are complaining the loudest about cancel culture are claiming that the world is humorless and overreactionary. Yes, please explain to this oversensitive snowflake how an age restriction on Peter Pan is exactly the same as the rise of Hitler. All right, brass taxes. What are we really talking about here? We're talking about some disclaimers. We're talking about updating some old language, changing a logo, firing some assholes, and sending some dangerous sex criminals to prison. Is that what cancel culture is? Because if it is, I say crank it up. But that's not what's happening here. What's really happening here is a rebrand. So I, like you, believe that cancel culture should be canceled. Let's rebrand it, call it what it is. Accountability and upgrades. It's been 10 Talks. Ooh, a bonus track. Hi. So when I was doing the research for this episode, I was reading some various articles and watching some online chatter and stuff. I couldn't help but notice that there was one name in the cancel culture conversation that was notably absent, and that name was Colin Kaepernick. Now, he might be the strongest example of cancel culture, and he was nowhere to be found. All the people that were complaining the loudest weren't really mentioning him at all, and I thought that was fascinating. Remember all those people that were like, well, you know what, maybe I could support this Black Lives Matter movement if they just weren't so violent and they weren't breaking things and smashing windows. And here comes Colin Kaepernick. He takes a knee during a football game, and y'all lost your damn minds, and he still doesn't have a team. Anyway, I thought it was interesting that you were way more concerned about Kermit than you were about Colin. I could do 10 more minutes on that alone, but I'm just going to leave that with you. Anyway, thanks for watching. I appreciate it, and take care out there.